Joining me now, CNN opinion contributor and former House Republican Investigative Committee counsel, Ms. Sophia Nelson's here, and Gene Rossi, a former federal prosecutor, also joining us here right now. I'm glad that you're both here. You know, the Supreme Court oral arguments are always a tricky one, right? On the one hand, they might have some preconceived notions based on their briefing. On the other hand, they really want to hear what you have to say at the oral argument. And one of the big questions is going to be whether the language of that 14th Amendment includes a president of the United States. When you look at this, what do you think?
It does, unequivocally.
Well, there we go.
And to the justices who are original textualists, just read the text. And then go over to Article 2, Google it, and that describes who the president is. It sets up the executive branch. It breaks it down. I think you have to read those in tandem. And I think that it's very clear that he is the chief executive officer of the United States.
But here's one of the problems, though. When you look at, and you're both familiar with this so much, and especially you and the work you've done, Sophia, but there had been earlier versions of the 14th Amendment that had the President of the United States in the language of Section 3. They didn't end up in the final version. The Supreme Court's going to look to see whether or not that makes a difference. Was your intent for him to be on it or not, or the president to be on it? And I wonder if they're going to look at that and say, the failure to name him specifically in that section, where we've named it in other places like the impeachment clause, is that enough to say, doesn't apply to him? I don't care what you think is the officer of the United States.
I could say this. The legislative history of this amendment suggests that they did want to include the president, even though it's not mentioned. And I want to say this. Jefferson Davis, president of the Confederacy, when they had the debates around this amendment, there was talk that he could possibly become president of the United States, or there was the hypothetical that he could. And I guarantee you, the framers of this amendment were thinking about whether he could be elected, even though he had been disgraced, and become president of the United States. So it was directed not just at him, but all the others who were part of the Confederacy. And going back to the original, the textualists, you have to look at what did they intend when that amendment was passed. You have to freeze frame it, almost like a football game. And you have to play that video back. And the intent is not just to include the low-level minnows in the government, to include the President of the United States.
Well, I'm going to freeze frame and note that the two of you match very well on this set right now.
We talked on the phone about
I wasn't going to say anything, but it looks really good. The freeze frame and replay that. Thank you so much. I want to get to the oath, though, because we've seen the spectacle of a president taking the oath. It's called the inauguration, right? We know this is a very important moment. But there's this question of taking the oath. And Trump says that his oath is to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution rather than support it. That's the argument he's making. Now, the counter argument is that defend and support, well, they are synonymous in many respects, as we all understand them. And so, I mean, I wonder how the conservative members of the court are going to parse through that distinction of, well, hold on, maybe the oath didn't apply in the same way.
I think you're splitting hairs here in a way. Not you, Laura, but Trump and his attorneys. And I think that these justices, I actually expect they'll be unanimous in this. And I know that people think that's probably insane of me, but I think this is a very serious question they've got to get right. And they're going to spend a lot of time deciding how this applies. And you start parsing out the oath to the Constitution when you become president, I just think that's a ridiculous argument. They mean the same. Those words are synonymous.
So is the reason for the so-called reach then because there isn't the leg to stand on, or do you think the Supreme Court, either of you, is going to say, you know what, even though you haven't been criminally charged and convicted of an insurrection or engaging in one, that's enough to disqualify you from the ballot? Are they going to go that far?
No, they're not. 1869, Justice Chase, Sam Chase, he issued an opinion that said under this amendment, Section 3, it has to be enforced by Congress. And that's the only real opinion that addresses the 14th Amendment. So I think the Supreme Court, if I'm going into tossiography and predictions, I think the Supreme Court is going to find the most narrow way to rule for Trump. And I think it's going to be that it has to be executed or enforced by Congress. But I want to add one little thing that isn't coming up in these arguments a lot, is the word hold. It says you can't hold office.
Yeah.
It does not mean you can't be elected. Wow. So you could elect some crazy person in a state or elect somebody who's crazy to be president of the United States. But then you have to get over the hold hurdle And that's where Congress comes in.
Yeah.
I agree.
And they can say, you know what? You're disqualified, but we're going to get 2/3 of the vote and say you can be president. So I think that word hold is very important. I bet you the Supreme Court is going to latch on to that word and have a very narrow interpretation of this case.
Yeah, that makes it so interesting. If the issue is whether you can hold office and that Congress can remove that disability, as they say, that makes the running mate of the eventual, if he is the nominee and he does secure the actual election, very important, does it not?
But there's a more important thing we're not talking about. You might get to it, so just hit me if I'm wrong, if I go wrong here.
I won't hit anyone who I invite to be on the show. I want you to know this.
But what I'm saying is that you got to deal with this issue that Colorado, as a sovereign state, has decided. They did the fact finding, right? They're the fact finder, if you will, that he engaged in insurrection and they took him off the ballot. The Supreme Court has to deal with whether or not they're going to override a sovereign state and their election processes. This is a 10th Amendment issue, too. It's not as clean as we might want it to be with the questions that we're answering. And I think that there is a real balance here between federalism and state rights and who's going to get the superior ground here. And I think Congress, as you said, it probably goes back to what Congress has to do here. I think they have a difficult decision ahead, and I think they have to be united in whatever way they come out on this.
But what about the issue? I mean, and what it comes down to, I think you're right about the idea this is based on a state Supreme Court making this assessment and a state district court having a fact-finding mission and a bench trial. But I also wonder about the engage in insurrection. Again, he has not been charged with insurrection. Even the one out of Washington, D.C., led by Jack Smith, has 4 counts, none of which include insurrection. The fact that that's a part of it, shall have engaged in insurrection. Are they going to rely then on the Colorado finding to make that conclusion? Or do they even get there?
The Supreme Court doesn't do fact finding.
They don't.
That's
their
not their job. Gina?
I'll tell you this right now. The Supreme Court tomorrow, and I'm predicting, they're going to stay away from finding insurrection or not finding. They don't need to get to that. I think there are many other avenues for the Supreme Court to find that narrow avenue to rule for Trump, and I think they will rule for Trump in the end. And I do think it's the self-executing issue. I think they're going to say Congress has to set guardrails because you don't want
checks and balances.
Absolutely.
It is.
You don't want 50 little, insurrection trials going out in the United States at the same time. We have to have some method to all this madness. And they're going to find the most narrow way, and it's going to be that Congress has to set some guidelines.
Well, I'll tell you what you're right about. I mean, the idea that this is not an isolated attempt in Colorado. There are other states that are considering it, and the Supreme Court's well aware of the problem of patchwork when it comes to issues like this, even if they want to keep their hands clean. Gene Rossi, Sophia Nelson, both of you, thank you so much. And come back so color coordinated again. That was lovely. Take a look at this, everyone. People are already lining up outside the Supreme Court tonight, hoping to get a seat for tomorrow's oral arguments. So, there's Jake Tapper. I'm just kidding. So how do Americans feel about efforts to keep Donald Trump off the ballot? We'll break it down at the Magic Wall next.